The cell membrane is a fluid mosaic model, meaning that it never stays completely solid at one point in time. It's constantly moving. It's a bilipid layer, so you have one set of lipids, which are, remember, fats, on one side, and then another side with their tails coming towards each other. Every once in a while you end up with a protein, which will help with a certain kind of diffusion that we'll learn about later. These are embedded inside of the layer. Sometimes you also have carbohydrates that are off of the side, and those just help for signaling and cell recognition. But you don't need to worry about that for this class right now. The cell membrane is very selective. It's picky about what it lets through, which is why we're going to learn about the different forms of transport to get things from outside the cell inside the cell. Diffusion is when you're moving a very small particle from outside of the cell inside of the cell. It doesn't use any energy, and it always goes from high concentration to low concentration. So this tiny little particle can kind of just swim right on through the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. Outside of the cell, we have very little water, which is the blue. Inside of the cell, there's lots of salt molecules inside, which are the orange, and very, very, very little blue, which is the water. When you eat really salty food, what do you want to do as soon as you finish? Probably drink a lot of water. And in order to get that water into your cells, osmosis takes place. Just like with diffusion, it goes from a high water concentration to a low water concentration. The water can go right through the cell membrane so that you have a lot of water flooding into the cell, balancing out the concentration of salt and water inside of the cell. Facilitated diffusion is when it's a larger molecule trying to cross from outside the cell inside the cell through the membrane. It's usually ions, sugars, and salts that are much larger than just plain water molecules. If they tried to go right into through the membrane, they're so big that they would just bounce right off. So instead, this is where we use the embedded protein that have channels that open up to allow the salt, sugar, or ions to go through the cell membrane. So they just go right through the channel of the membrane to enter inside of the cell. Remember though, it's still diffusion, so it's still going to go from high concentration outside of the cell to low concentration inside of the cell. without using any energy. Active transport is different than the other forms, which are all mostly diffusion. Active transport involves actually using energy. It's similar to a sort of pump in order that it transports things from low concentration to high concentration. Notice that these are flipped than the other videos. So it's going from low concentration to high concentration, which requires extra energy. That's why it's called active, because it actually needs to do something more than just let everything flow through. This uses the protein as well. And because it's usually for ions, that's why I have the charged plus in the middle of the square there. It goes through the protein again, just like facilitated diffusion, but because it's going from low to high, remember, it uses energy.